Oh, God. Dave, get us started. Take us back to Cheltenham on Friday night.
I'm just quietly reminiscing about the times when Manager of the Month was an award and not a strategy. Right, Friday, Cheltenham, deepest Gloucestershire. I was there. It was a lovely evening. I thought I enjoyed myself in that away end. It was the performance wasn't a vintage one. It was better than what we've had a lot of times. There was a bit of energy about us. There was a bit of spark. There was a bit of resilience about the team coming back from 1 goal down to get us 2-1 ahead. Naturally, the flaws were there. We conceded the goal that we tend to concede a lot, where we let someone saunter down past towards our kind of right wing back, right centre half area. Don't bother getting a challenge in. Cross comes in, score a goal. Fairly routine, and then the customary late collapse. But it felt as though there was something to hold on to, and I think the reception at the end, the support was really good on Friday. It was one of them where everybody kept everyone going. There was a couple of times where the self-derogatory, how shit must you be, we're winning away chants started up, but they were quickly stamped on, and there was a kind of an ethos of, no, let's get behind them. And I think they kind of deserve that. And at the end, there was an ovation, which I think probably went on a bit too long, to be honest. I think by the end of it, we were all just stood there going, right, well, who's going to break first? The players or the support. But I kind of walked out thinking we should have held on, but there might be something to hold on to there. And then we come to Tuesday night, and everything that Friday was, Tuesday wasn't. It was lifeless on and off the pitch. There was nothing about the crowd. There was nothing about the team. We didn't seem to have any real shape. We didn't have any intent. We didn't have any guile. We didn't have any desire. We didn't have any of the things that you need the majority of if you're going to pick up points even in League Two. And we deservedly got beat, and we were awful. It was again one of those nights where you walk out and think, we're done for. This is absolutely done for. And then you listen to Maamria's kind of post-match with Adam, and he's identifying the problems. And there's a couple of things where I was thinking, well, hang on a minute, Dino, that, talking about how we've got to stay with this shape because we've got no wingers and we've got no fullbacks and all that sort of thing. And I'm thinking, well, like Freddie Anderson, before he got injured, I mean, what does a right back do? He tackles his winger and he gets you up the pitch. Anderson could do that. He was doing that from the right-hand side of central defence. It's not a massive leap of kind of tactical brilliance to make him stand 5 yards, 10 yards further to the right and call him a right back. Ben Jackson's played left back. He was there when Clement started with the 4-3-3 start of last season. Barkhuizen's a winger. You can stick Newby on the wing. So we have got the options within the squad to kind of tweak the system if we want, but we seem so absolutely wedded to the back three, which I don't mind as a system because when it works really well. We've won leagues playing three at the back, but it hasn't worked this season for us. It hasn't worked for Wing. It hasn't worked for McDonald. It hasn't worked for Gallagher. It hasn't worked for Maamria. Have I missed any? I don't think so. And you're thinking, well, he's taken a bit of a pot shot at the board or the recruitment or whatever, saying, the problems are there for everyone to see. And you're thinking, well, if this was maybe 10 games down the line and he's failed to do his firefighter act and he's failed to keep us up, then that's maybe his way of saying, well, it wasn't my fault, lads. It was shit when I got here. And I thought, well, maybe he's had a bit of a pot shot, and let's see how this meet the board turns out on Friday, which incidentally, I don't think he should have been on there on the panel anyway. And then, we get the news. He's gone. And you're thinking, right, here we go again, for however many times it's been this season. And it's just an absolute shambles. And there seems to be something in the DNA of this club. 1972, we decided it was a good idea to ruin the pitch, stick a speedway track in it, totally alienate the clubs who were coming up to visit us, who had the vote at the end of the season whether we stayed in the league or not, because we didn't actually finish bottom of the league in 1972. We were voted out, and one of the reasons was because the facilities were crap, and we kind of shot ourselves in the foot doing that. And now this season, we've decided that the strategy, as far as I can see it, is to sign a load of spineless, useless footballers, and then every time the bottom lip comes out of the dressing room, sack the manager and get another one in. I think we're the architects of our own downfall, I really do. And I don't think it's malevolent. I don't think we're kind of being driven into the ground by some evil geniuses who are wanting to sell the ground for housing or anything like that. I genuinely think that the decisions that have been made for the what probably been perceived to be the right reasons and with the best intentions, because let's face it, the guys on the board are putting in a decent chunk of their own money every season. So, it's a very expensive hobby, but I don't know, from the outside looking in, people are just looking at us as though we're an absolute basket case. My director at work is a Nottingham Forest fan, and he sent me a text this afternoon saying, "What the hell's going on at your place?" He's a Nottingham Forest fan. Like, in terms of managerial instability, like, they are the Midlands equivalent of us, aren't they? There's us Tottenham and Forest need to go and stand in a dark corner at the end of the season and think about what we've done, because, yeah, it's just bewildering. So, yeah, here's to the new regime. Here's to Foleyism. Here's to, whatever Dave Worrell brings, because he's the turd that won't flush. Here's to Simon Ireland and whoever else is left over. And, maybe we've tried managers, we've tried coaching these players, we've tried a bit of discipline. Maybe we just let them freestyle, and maybe that's the route to glory, because, Christ, we've tried everything else. So let's give this a go. Why not?
Yeah, I was thinking you're talking about the Nottingham Forest guy messaging. I was having a bit of a look on Twitter before, and obviously with the talk of the lower leagues and even higher at the moment, and it's kind of a bit of a sort of hold my beer thing, isn't it? I'm thinking back to sort of last year, and already I'm seeing the things that were bookmarked that we said about Carlisle and Morecambe, and they're going early on some of this. You know what I mean? They're feeling pretty confident about coming back, because when you look at our closest rivals, and not in terms of geography, but in terms of rivalry, I suppose. Last year we were laughing at them, and we were thinking, God, they're in a mess. And we've just kind of come in and gone, okay, we'll try and go one better. Thankfully, not as bad as Morecambe yet, but we're on our way. That's for sure. Steve, Dino was our latest victim. You were sat behind him last night. Tell us about the latest managerial sacrifice.
Talking about managerial sacrifices, I mean, that was my wife's birthday, and I took her to that game. So, I'm not entirely sure I shouldn't have been sacrificed at the altar of marriage as a sort of. So actually, I can only tell you about the first 55 minutes, given to the fact that when I said to her, "What should we do at half time?" she said, "Leave." So I really, as there was the only places, Barrow, where a covered stand can have rain coming into you utterly horizontally, so you're soaked from head to foot. You're actually safe for standing. But so that was miserable. However, I can tell you enough about it. Really, it certainly didn't. It started badly and fell away. Really. Well, Dino came out with his customary sort of spring in his step. You're right. I mean, the crowd just looked miserable and wet, and so did the players, and that's how they played. I couldn't work out what formation they were playing at all at really any point now. So they might have gone that freestyle early, Dave, because they certainly haven't. Was it a back three? Was it a back five? Was it a back four? And one's having a sort of wander about. I don't know. We were all far too deep. Stupid play, which was clearly frustrating Dino Maamria, but equally he wasn't really giving them any sort of vague pointers other than screaming in frustration, really. I think the worst bit for me, and it certainly was for him, was we got the ball. It's our attempt to play it. It's our comedy attempts to play out of the back that were particularly upsetting. We decided we're bored with Cameron and laconic. Cameron, Christ, where's he come from? Caravan, laconically kicking it to nobody on a diagonal. So we thought we'd just stick to the one way of losing the ball, which is passing it ourselves out of play after 8 passes going backwards, which we did at one point. Then there was a drinks break, and Dino let into them, frankly. But it was almost as a why, God, why? Where he basically questioned their parentage, professionalism, overall courage, and commitment to the town and the game of football in general, as far as I could hear, to which it was met with a wall of complete indifference, frankly. And if I was on the board and I sort of witnessed that, the whole, if the chest pumping isn't working and the sort of making us difficult to beat isn't working and the firefighting isn't working, what is working? Well, not very much. I'm absolutely heartsick at the idea that this bunch of shysters are dictating, frankly, who they do and don't like. There's some bad eggs in this dressing room, and we're in such a bad situation that we're really, really, really stuck with it till the end. Although I do think Raheem Harper should never put on a Barrow jersey again. I thought it was dispiriting, mindless, negative. But it's mostly deeply, deeply numbing. It was numbing and sad, and any other adjectives for things being crap that I could think of. Honestly, I thought they just didn't look in the least bit bothered, and they didn't look keen on it. I have never known. I used to relish Barrow on a Tuesday in the pissing rain. And we used to relish that because we knew they'd hate it more than us. But we hate it more than them. We're not supposed to be the team that don't relish coming to Barrow. It's not the other way, it's the other way around. So, yeah, a pox on all of them. Sorry, Dino, you probably... Sam Foley, yeah, I mean, he's quite a fine, outstanding gentleman. Well thought of. Not a surprise he's in management. Didn't expect it this week. I doubt he did either. So who knows? Freestyle. And we've only got one to go, by the way, until we equal Palermo, who hold the record. So,
right.
So we're on the heels of Palermo, which makes it sound much more exciting than watching Barrow currently actually is.
I was going to say, yeah, that gives me something to
on the heels of Palermo. It sounds like that's all right, yeah.
Yeah, record-breaking season.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, we go. It can be a comedy answer and a quiz contest. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So we've also got Ronan with us tonight because we thought we'd pile on good and proper. So, yeah, not wanting to hold back Ronan. I mean, you were there at the tunnel at the end and you caught a bit of reaction of some of the players. I'd be interested to know from you a little bit on the Dino question as well. I mean, is there a case to say maybe it's not a bad idea getting rid of him? You know, did we see enough to like? And we got 10 games, I think now, 10 or 11 games to really turn this around. You know, from what you've seen last night in the game and at the tunnel at the end, you know, and after this announcement, you know, where next?
Listen, I don't think this book stops with the manager at all. I don't think it's anything to do with Dino Maamria. I mean, it's not got any better, obviously, but it could be anyone in this dugout, and I don't think anyone's going to get anything out of them. I think there's a lot of accountability to be held with the 11 who pretend to be footballers on a weekly to twice a week basis. Last night was disgraceful. I mean, let's have it right. It was one of the most embarrassing performances I've ever seen at Alk Street, and we've, collectively amongst the four of us, we've seen some pretty awful stuff. I'd actually go as far as saying when we lost to Gainsborough, when it was 6-0, 6-1, that equally felt as dispiriting as that, to be honest. And probably not as bad in terms of the actual result, but the way it made you feel, because I remember how that made me feel a long time ago. I felt horrendous as like a young lad thinking, Christ, is this how bad it gets? And I got the same feeling, to be honest. Not one I've had very often at Alka Street. I don't really have an opinion whether Dino's the man or not, or whether he's the right man to take us forward. The rumour is that he lost the dressing room. Well, so's 4 other managers this season. And if we're trusting the players to, be the judge of character to, appoint football managers with, then I think that's a really shitty stick to sort of measure people with, because what they performed with this season has been nothing short of a disgrace in large chunks. Not all of them, but I'd probably say a good 90% of them. We're now at the stage where we're averaging a manager every 9 games this season. So we are actually due a new one 2 games before the end of the season. So for Cambridge and Newport, we are due one more manager, which we'll see us break the Palmero record. So I made a little bit of a list of who the next sort of manager could be. So I've gone with Ian Wood, Ryan Sutherland, Ricky, or we could go for like a Daz and Dave and do Blue Nige and Pedro off the forum and go for like that sort of mix between the two. And I don't know how that would work, but that's probably my favourite out of the 4. Like, you could probably... And do you know what? Going back to it, Chase Homer would be in with all of them. So it doesn't matter who you get. He could be whatever he wants to be.
Do we think that the board saw the Barrel 125 branding and saw that as a target for how many managers we could have this season? Like, really get us in the record books and get us some bit of press attention, because we've tried a lot of things to try and get a development partner or a new investor. So maybe if we get ourselves into the Guinness Book of Records for being the most batshit mental football club in history, then that might be a hook. Who knows? Worth trying at this point.
Yeah, but we are out of options. And to go on to your last point there, Johnny, I did go to the tunnel, and I'm not even going to say embarrassingly, because I've got no feeling about it at all. I thought, I've screamed them at the terraces. I've been positive. I've backed them in games. I've done everything. So I just thought, I'm just going to tell them all what I thought of them. And I did. I just said, yous are all a bunch of cowards. None of yous have got a spine between yous. None of yous care. And none of yous give a shite. And I was thinking, challenge me. Like, if one of yous challenges me, that's fine. Like, at least I'll show one of yous cares. Fair enough. You've not been great this season, but at least have a bit of bollocks. Heads down, straight down the tunnel. A few of them looked at me. Raheem Harper laughed, which is hilarious, really, because the fact that he thinks that's funny is an absolute discredit to anyone that goes in that Hawker Street and pays to watch him play football. I think just a pack of chanting cowards, most of them. I think there's 1 or 2, and I still stand by it, that do care. I think there's 1 or 2. I think that the gent playing next to Raheem Harper is the one I'll highlight, Charlie McCann, who's currently doing the work of an entire midfield on his own back. But there's no positives to come out of last night. It was an absolute disgrace.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you're saying before in terms of just racking our brains, to think of a time when you just felt, totally void of any kind of hope. And looking at performance last night, when you consider the circumstances and what's on the line, it's just so dispiriting, and you just can't really rationalise it. And the only way you can think that they're just so disconnected from what this is and what this means. We're not a big club, but we're a small, dedicated, passionate club who I think value the Football League status more than anybody in the whole football pyramid, because we spent so long out of it and we worked so hard to try and get back, and to find ourselves in this situation, like I said, with 11 games to go and an opportunity last night, we made Bristol Rovers look like a complete side. They look fantastic. My stream kind of flipped between the 2 commentaries on Radio Cumbria and the BBC Bristol or whatever it's called, and on there you had Dom Telford. Actually, he was up on the co-coms. I think he had a loan spell at Bristol and obviously played for us. He didn't really, I wouldn't say he had any bad things to say about us. Didn't really have any nice things, to seem a bit kind of meh. And I think he's probably one of the examples of players we've had over the last couple of years who comes with a bit of promise, but just doesn't seem to show any connection or any desire at all when he's wearing the Barry shirt. And that was fine, hovering around mid-table, lower mid-table when relegation wasn't a threat. When it's become a threat, you just left wanting. And everyone's saying the same thing at the moment. We've seen relegation battles before. We're not unaccustomed to being shit. That's absolutely fine. That's part of the course of being a Barrow fan. But to see a team completely dejected, completely void. I was watching a little boy the first half. He's 8 years old. I said, "What does Leonardo like? We've got the ball now. I'm going to count to 10. and see if we still got the ball at the end of the 10 seconds. And I couldn't get through it. We just kept getting turned over and turned over and turned over. It was, I've never seen anything like that in my life. And I was reminding myself of the circumstances, what's on the line here. And then hearing, like I say, about you at the tunnel there at the end, Ronan, it just does leave you thinking, what the hell is going on? But we do have to go on. That's the nature of football. There is 11 games left. We are still freakishly outside the relegation zone. It's hard to imagine that there could be two worse sides than us in this league, but as it stands, they currently are on goal difference only. So we move to the weekend. Let's go to our inbox and get an opposition view before we try and talk about the future.
Hello, you've reached the offices of Given Beans. All our Beans operatives are busy getting it forward at the moment. Please leave your message after the beep.
Good evening, Barrow. Good evening, Jonny, and all the people at the Giving It Beans team. Accy fan here, ringing up the podcast to give us some thoughts on the game on Saturday. It's an absolute pleasure to be on this award-winning podcast. I listen to it every now and then. It's a great podcast. Jonny's doing fantastic things with it. I'm Jason Graham, Accy fan since the early 80s and home and away since 1999. I have a big hand in the Clayton and Terrace banners and flags and things like that. And I also used to play in the fans team. We used to play Barrow in the Northern Fans League all them years ago. Accy this season, we're just safe now. So, one win away from being safe. So we have to really say well done to John and Jed and the team at Accy. We're a bit hit and miss. We're a bit splurgy. We'll beat a few teams. We'll lose to some rubbish. We'll hover around the bottom and then we'll splurge and go a little bit higher. That's the way it's been now for the last 2 to 3 seasons since Johnny Doolan took over. In October last year, we got beat at home to Newport, which was a terrible result. And you think, well, this is going to be the end of our 20 years in the Football League. But then we pulled it out of the bag. The next game, we go and beat Swindon 4-1 at home. And it's been like that most of the season. We'll lose a couple, we win a couple. And yeah, looks like we're going to be safe again for our 20th season in the league. So we have to be every credit to us really there. Should we aim to be more than this? Of course, we probably should. But also, alternatively, there's probably 10 bigger teams, or maybe even more than that, in non-league who would swap places instantly. I know York are spending a lot of money just to try and get into the Football League and take place in a team like us. And so, yeah, we should probably be really happy that we can punch above our weight as Accy. As a fan base, we're still really getting over the John and Jimmy sacking. The support is split straight down the middle for probably the old school who grew up with John and always seen promotions, and the new fans who joined him when we were in the Football League who feel we should move on. The chairman seems to still be sulking and the vibe around the place isn't the same as it was when John and Jimmy was here, but we're still mid-table with our budget and we're one win from safety, so fans really should be delighted. As a squad, we've cobbled together some non-league gems like Matthews at centre-half, who came from Curzon, and Sinclair midfield. We've got big Faz Rawson, who's been playing really well, especially the last few games when he scored on Saturday. And up front, Paddy Madden, who's still got goals in him, even though he's not as mobile as he was. So the squad's quite good. Our two biggest sets are the wingers, Isaac Heath and Sean Worley. They've probably got 40 years in between them. Isaac Heath's on loan from Everton, and Sean Worley's in one of his last contracts with us at 38 years old. It's a squad that's got potential. There's youngsters in there, they're contracted, and if we could get them to click one season, here's hoping. On to Barrow. Jonny said, we're rivals. Of course we're rivals, yeah. The old guard remember all our battles in the Unibond. You were the big club, had big crowds, and then we started throwing a bit of money around after Brett Ormrod. We got some kickback from his transfer. Recently, the rivalry between Barrow and Accy has probably mellowed since the Unibond, because we've been in different leagues. We've been in the Football League, League One, and you were making your way through to get back in the Football League. We've only really had 5 seasons, I think, now which have been together. But we still sing the Barrow songs. We still hope that Saturday, Stanley waves it across, instead of catching it like he did at our place on Boxing Day, and we end up with 3 points. in terms of what you're going to do now, I think you've just sacked Dino Maamria. So I think that might be for fifth or sixth manager for you now. So yeah, on to Saturday. Hopefully Barrow won't have the no manager bounce instead of the new manager bounce. All the best. I'll see you at the game on Stanley on.
Yeah, so thanks to Jase for that. A guy, actually, as he mentioned on his note there, that we go way back with, as a opponent on the football pitch as well as in the terraces. So yeah, certainly a good guy, and I know he'll be looking forward to his trip this Saturday. They haven't won, I think now they won 1 out of 5. Last time they won was actually against our opponents next Tuesday, Salford. So they're not particularly great form. They got a good point at home to Cambridge at the weekend. Just coming to you first, and Dave. I mean, thinking this in the context of Maamria going, Foley coming in, this idea that the players just going to find their own way now for the rest of the season after not liking being told what to do by the previous set of managers. Is there anything in that could make you feel that this could be a game where we might just be able to pick up something from and just keep our heads above that drop zone at the moment?
I think the Cheltenham game, as I said before, gave me a little bit of hope because there was a bit of spirit, there was a bit of endeavour, there was a bit of industry, there was a bit of guile. But Jason there saying that their key threats come from their wingers sent a shiver down my spine, because that's been our Achilles heel. Or any of the other catalogue of injuries that we've collected this season, hasn't it? So I'm not looking forward to Sean Walling marauding down the wing and picking out our weak spots, to be honest. And do you know what? Fair play to Accrington. And I've said this before, they were absolutely in the clarts last season. Relegation zone, really struggled, kind of rookie manager. Is he going to be the man to take them forward after the legend of John Coleman and all that sort of thing? And did they do the Barrow thing of panicking and sacking him after 5 games? No, they stuck with him. They had a plan. They've recruited out of non-league. They've, got the odd veteran through the team as well. They picked up some decent loanees from kind of clubs around about them. And they're having a decent season this season. Jason saying there they need another win to be safe. I think they're safe already. 47 points. Crikey. Imagine that. It's just been greedy trying to get to 50, innit? So, are we capable of picking out a result on Saturday? Yes, we are. Do I have any confidence in doing it? No, I'm not, to be honest. I think the Dino win against Colchester, that's looking more and more like a dead cat bounce. I don't know. Just Tuesday night just totally knocked the stuffing out of me. I just thought there was no industry about them. There's no passion. And I know we kind of reel out the tropes about, doing it for the club and doing it for their supporters and doing it for the town, and they don't care. And why should they? They're paid mercenaries. Are they doing it for themselves? Are they a happy dressing room? We've been told in the past that they're a good group of lads. Could have fooled me. Have they got that loyalty to themselves, to the people who they kind of work with day in, day out? I don't know. They certainly, we could reel out how many stories about people on the terraces and at the club who deserve a performance on Saturday. Whether it's board members who are putting in hundreds of thousands, whether it's people who give up the Sunday mornings to go and sweep up, whether it's people like our kid who drives for 2 and a bit hours to sit in a porter cabin and organise the shop and do the raffle. And, quite luckily for him, he doesn't actually see much of the games. But,
maybe that's what's keeping him going.
Yeah, exactly. God Christ, if you had to do all that and suffer the performances, bloody hell. But did they have that inside them to think we've got a moral responsibility to, or a professional responsibility? I'm struggling to see it. But if you'd have asked me this on Friday, walking out of the ground at Cheltenham, as I said before, I'd have thought, well, that's something to hold on to. Maybe we have got it. But the absolute inability to do it 2 halves in a row, never mind 2 games in a row, I don't know. I'm just gone with them. I'm just really gone with them. So who knows? Certainly not me.
I mean, Ron, do you think we could see something tactically a bit different now? Because I think there has been some bad consistent things under Maamria recently that just made us all pull our hair out. I mean, it might have even happened before Maamria. That might have been a bit of recency bias. But this kind of like bringing everybody back and defending set pieces, or with everybody in the box and not leaving a player up. Has that been going on all season, or is it just recently we've decided to do that? Because that's just painful to watch, and that's one thing that we could change. Certainly benefited Bristol last night. I remember a really good example where they cleared the ball, there was a forward up, he carried it, he won the throw-in our half, and put us under straight away. Like, there was certain traits to this Maamria version of Barrow that we might just be able to see the back of that might make something just magically happen.
I think you've got a little bit glass half full there. I don't know, really. I think we've got bigger problems, although I do agree with your sentiment about leaving somebody up for a corner and actually having an outlet and all that jazz, coupled with the fact that I probably still think we should have men on post and be man-to-man, but that's my archaic view of football. I don't know. You can do whatever you want, really. I think we've covered this in a different pod, but we're still susceptible to outrageous mistakes. We've got a midfield which is one man doing two persons running, because one of the midfielders can't be arsed. And that coupled with a forward line who are getting either the balls pumped up to him from, against 6'5" giant centre halves, or an absolute lack of any form of chance, isn't making it pleasant watching, to be honest. I'm hopeful that maybe another sacking might make them actually think that they've got to take some accountability amongst themselves. I've said this before. If you like Dave said, they are effectively paid mercenaries. But ultimately, them paid mercenaries have got to go and get another club next year. A lot of them. So,
well, some of them stay with us.
Some of them do. Yeah, but
quite a lot of them.
17 or 18 out of contract players next season. 17 or 18 are leaving us next season, some of which are on loan and out of contract at different clubs. And for them lot, they've got to go out and get that other club. They've got to go out and do something. So if it's not for anybody with us, it's for personal pride and your own career. If I go to work on a Monday to Friday, the very little I do to make sure that I look after myself if I'm not necessarily enjoying what I'm doing, which I've done in the past. And it's all about your own self pride. But I don't even think they've got that, to be honest. Apart from maybe one or two, but. I'm just rambling now because I'm so fucked off of how awful they've been for the last few weeks, but we are where we are. I mean, genuinely, we are. I've said this multiple times. We are at rock bottom, and I thought rock bottom was like about 5 weeks ago, but we are finding new lows of rock bottomness.
Do we not think we've given them an excuse to kind of abrogate this responsibility? Because when we sacked Wing, it was basically the players are good enough; it's the manager's fault. I mean, footballers love an excuse, don't they? I mean, football is a game in general where it's never your fault. It's always someone else's fault. And I just feel as though we've almost given them the excuse or carte blanche to say, oh, well, it's not us, it's the manager. We're a great group of lads. Everyone says it. It's the manager's fault. So keep cycling through the managers and eventually somebody will kind of chance upon the magic formula to get us playing. So I think we've just we've almost indulged them too much. Before we should have maybe said we're under Wing saying right, actually he's our man and we're going to because we spend money in January transfer windows usually making up for the mistakes we make in the summer. So why not give the manager a bit of authority? Because it just seems to be that whoever's in the hot seat, as I say, all it takes is a few mutterings and we're not getting the clarity, that magic word, which as I said before, Sam Foley will have to be talking to him in crayon drawings to make it any more clear what they need to be doing. I don't know. I think we just again shot ourselves in the foot. We've given a bunch of wasters every excuse to be wasters.
I think there's no hiding that. For most of us, we are fully apparent that the buck lies with the players. These players have let down. What are we on? No, 4 managers. Sorry, I actually generally thought we were on 5 then. And it's up to them. Like, you know what I mean? We can't do anymore as support. We physically can't do it anymore. We've backed them, we've screamed at them, we've shouted at them, we've sang for them. We were abusing them on corners last night. Maybe that's wrong. Don't know. I don't really give a care. I don't give a care if they don't like that. Like I couldn't give a monkeys, to be honest. We are where we are. Now there's a wider conversation and probably a topic or point that we've not addressed on probably here when bits that I've listened to that the actual wider book stops with those at the top, which we haven't really addressed. And a conversation that I don't think we could probably encapsulate within one podcast and covering enough, really. But
there's an end of season one there. There's no doubt about that. And even if we're mathematically done by, then it'll all come out for sure. And Steve, just something that they said there that I'd be interested to touch on a little bit more. I think Dave's right in terms of, abdicating responsibility from the players. Does that make this appointment a little bit different, though? Because one of them players is Foley. He's going to be taking over. Worrell's going to be in there. He's very much a kind of company guy. There isn't no wing, no Maamria, no Gallagher, no one to throw under a bus there. They're kind of all in it on their own now. So could that be the thing that makes them think, actually, we've got nobody else to point a finger at now?
Well, it could be. I mean, it's like anything could be, but it's. I mean, the thing, I suppose, if I can try and grasp at a tiniest of straws, I suppose if anybody in there has got any sort of reasonable attitude to how to handle themselves in their career in terms of the longevity and making sure that they're able to sort of play and being accountable for their mistakes, it's probably Sam Foley on the pitch, which he hasn't been for most of the season. Whether that can translate itself, I have my doubts. A cynic might suggest that they're just completely run out of money and they're not going to pay for another one, so we might as well go in-house. Also, I just think we've run out of ideas. I believe that it is utterly apparent that the not deliberate, as Dave said a while back about nobody's doing this deliberately, but the root of the whole hapless farrago is elsewhere than the sort of poor sods who've been tasked with managing this. They've all made mistakes, they've all had foibles, but the root of the problem is what happened before the season and what has happened in terms of decisions higher up, as well as what's happened in the dressing room, and people need to be taken into account of that, and without fear or favour need to be held accounting for that, which is why I am utterly opposed to the nonsensical idea of Sam Foley being there on Friday night.
Is that going to happen though? Has anyone?
Yeah, I think they pulled that one.
Yeah, I mean, just to come into that, let's just go around the room quickly, because it's a Q&A on the Friday night. Have you kind of got your questions lined up already? I mean, where do you start? How do you put them into a couple of golden bullet questions?
I think that the night on Friday, we'll probably have to wait for the usual people to do their speeches, which masquerade as questions. You'll have to sit through kind of a couple of men of a certain age who don't understand how Q&As work and just start shouting over and above everybody. And then my first question will probably be along the lines of where do you think we've made the biggest errors? Is it in terms of recruitment of players or recruitment of managers? And I think, I don't know, I'm just looking at it there in terms of the current ownership, in terms of the managers that they've appointed. One good appointment in Wild, and then you've got Dunn, Brown, Cooper, Clements, Wing, Jolly, Gallagher and Maamria, who haven't worked to varying degrees. Now, if that's me, we should almost recognise our shortcomings and try and minimise our failures. Paul Cox used to go on about it, like, minimise the amount of mistakes you can make in your own area. So, personal level, I'm rubbish at handyman stuff. I can't paint, I can't decorate, I can't do electrics, I don't do DIY. So I minimise my mistakes by getting someone qualified in. If I'm looking at that list of managerial appointments, I'm thinking, I'm actually not very good at appointing managers because most of them don't last the season. So why would you try and maximise your biggest area of weakness by appointing 4 of the buggers over the course, or having 4 of them over the course of a season? Surely you've got to kind of say, right, we've got one and we stick with them, and we can probably shuffle the pack more in terms of the playing staff than we can the managerial staff. Because, let's just say Sam Foley pulls off the miracle and we stay up. and he actually decides, do you know what, I've not done a UEFA course, I'm not cut out for being a full-time manager, who do we reappoint in the summer? How many managers how many decent, credible, ambitious managers are going to be knocking on our door to say, I want to be a part of this club? Because I imagine the line's pretty short. So I don't know. I think it's just again, we talk about an end of season review, but we all review things in running, kind of day in, day out. I would like to know, and with candour and honesty, where they think the biggest mistakes they've made. Because I think in the statement they've put out, they've kind of hinted at, yes, the buck stops with us, and it's down to us. So I'd just like to know whether they think it was the recruitment and the ins and outs on the pitch that they think has gone most wrong, or the ones in the dugout.
Yeah, in terms of if we stay up and we need a new manager, we could always ask Jase if he knows anybody good, because John Coleman does not suit an Aldershot bloody jacket and uniform. I don't know what he's doing down there. We could relieve him of his southern woes. That's for sure. That'd be agonising for him to watch. Yeah, and just going back around the room, Ronan, I mean, how do you ask anything different from what Dave was saying there, really?
No, I think Dave's encapsulated that perfectly. I noted I don't like doing it, but I had a read of the forum today on my lunch, and I think what was really sort of harrowing was the fact folk are still sort of the opinion that, they put the money in and they could just walk away at any time, and we shouldn't challenge them. I think my plea to anybody would be, if you've got an insightful question, please challenge them. Please ask them things that you want to know the answer to. I'm not asking you to make it difficult and horrible. I'm just asking you to, get some honest answers out of them. I did enjoy a comment somebody made about, you're going to have to be very clever to get past Tony Shearer. Well, 9 managers have managed it, so I think we'll be all right as a fan base. I don't think it'll take much, really. So let's see where we go from there.
Steve?
I can tell you what I don't want. I don't want wasting the times. I don't want the time being wasted by making up various questions that are meant to be sort of generalities from the floor. I don't want a lead in with some kind of Wogan-esque hack nonsense that wastes 10 minutes before we get started. I think we need to be respectful. I think, however, that I don't want the bus throwing. The bus throwing of the managers, that is not going to wash. So all the other, and they are, they're smart guys, they're good communicators. All those tactics will not work, guys. I don't think that the manager, like I said, I hope they have pulled the plug on the manager being there, because I don't think he's got any business in the middle of it, frankly, right now. I think as well, this is not you're looking at what is the common denominator here? What is the common denominator here? Like, somebody I got on fine with, and his name's Ian Wood, and it's the recruitment of said people. You just asked about who do we get if you don't get anybody to paint the house. Well, you didn't get somebody who could paint the house, but you maybe got somebody that had done a bit of building somewhere else and had a vague idea of the trade. And he's painted the house, and he's made a right bloody mess of it. So, why is that? Where is the accountability there? I asked at the start of the season about what lessons had been learned at the Q&A about what have we learned from Clement, what happened, and we were being told we were going to be more direct, we were going to be more physical, we were going to be more front-footed. How do you think we're getting on with that, guys? Because that was the answer to that. And before that, we had, when we got Clements in, we were told we were going to be more technical, that there was better coaching, it was more insightful, there was a bit more of a background. I mean, I've heard it all. I've heard it all from that particular source, and I've heard it all in terms of mea culpas. Hey, look, I've been there, and it's not easy, and I'm not suggesting we start to be shouting it, but equally you can't. And the other thing you can't do, I don't like, is there's no point in taking the hump and saying take it or leave it when you hear some things you don't want to. They maybe don't have the money you have, but they love the club same as you. appreciate what, everybody's done. But so that's the things I don't want. My question to Ian, I think, with a lot of regret, would be, if we're having if we're being absolutely honest, how does the actual table in front of us tonight see their performance this season?
So, it's going to be an interesting one, that's for sure. We'll report back on that in a pod next week with the game as well. One thing that I found quite depressing in a way last night after the game, on top of the game, was the announcement that we don't even have a bus going to Salford. We couldn't fill it, and I think that's been the one thing I've really struggled with at the moment, because we've all mentioned it before. We've been in relegation battles before. I'm up for a relegation fight. I think every Barrow fan is. They're always up for the fight. And if anyway, that my hope was the realisation that would be in a relegation fight would start to galvanise us and make us see that fight. The problem we've got now is this just seems to be a kind of wet fart, kind of slowly trickle us out of the Football League, to the point where people aren't even... You're just walking out of stadiums now and they're just not signing up for buses for a game that is one of our more local games on a Tuesday night. Granted, we never get anything from Salford. I don't think we even beat them. I think we might have a point here and there from them over the last 4 or 5 years or so. I can't remember any victories. I'm just checking through that list to see if I'm right or wrong. But yeah, I felt that was pretty sad.
I think what's the most worrying part for me is, as a fan base, we normally have like a game, and I could never quote the game of the season when we're in these relegation fights, and all of a sudden we just sort of flip, and you get that weird sort of togetherness where we all just appreciate what we're watching, and that it's not necessarily a lack of trying or want from the players. It's usually a lack of quality, when we found in the Football League sometimes, and even the National League where Luke James kept us up. And I don't think we've had that moment as a fan base. I don't know how anybody else feels around the pod, but I don't think we've had that sort of galvanising moment. I was hoping Cheltenham would be that, and then we got to Tuesday night, last night, and they just went the complete opposite. And it might be a trivial point, but I'm hoping that maybe this Tuesday is, going into Saturday, might be that moment, really, because regardless of what's going to happen in the last 9 games, might be slightly longer, sorry, we're going to have to try and get out of this mess as a collective group at some point.
I thought Cheltenham was going to be the Geisley for the watermelon vape generation. But then Tuesday happened.
Honestly, I think the difference is that we've got Ben Jacksons and we haven't got Connor Browns.
Yeah, but that guy's the game. There was a lot of shit on that pitch. Was it Asa Hall and Kingsley James and all that sort of thing? There was a lot of people who we didn't like in that Geisley team, that kind of AD Pennock team, but he managed to wring absolutely everything out of them. It wasn't like they were a team of heroes who were woefully under-resourced. There was a lot of wastrels in that squad as well, but somehow Pennock got a tune out of them. It's funny you should mention Connor Brown, because his chant got an airing on Friday night against Cheltenham. I'd have him back. And you talk about Luke James, bring them home, bring them all home.
Get the band back together.
Exactly. Yeah, because can they be any worse than what we've got at the minute?
Well, the thing is, our other hope is that we can just kind of maintain a kind of trickle, a point, and, something that takes us towards 36, 37. And Newport this weekend play Barnet away. That's not easy. Harrogate play at 12:30 on Saturday against Salford, the team we play on Tuesday night. So we might find ourselves, come 3 o'clock with the opportunity to nick in front of Harrogate. And at the moment, it's just about that. It's just, can we better or at least match the results of those two below us? And then obviously you've got Tranmere in free fall, where our old friend Pete Wild has found himself, which is an interesting thing itself. I mentioned the other day, this is new territory for him. They're in free fall. He's not took over a club in that type of position before, with us and with Fleetwood. He's got a big job to do. They've from 35, they've got to try and make 40, and 5 points from 10. Well, when you think he needed, 3 points from 8 when he was trying to get us into the playoffs and bottled that. So you never know. Tranmere don't have their noses safe, and Crawley as well. So there's still 4 or 5 teams in the mix here. We just got to find a way to make sure we're not one of them. But I don't think anybody feels like we're not going to. That's not going to be us. Steve, do you want to have the final word?
Well, I just wanted to echo those stirring thoughts, Johnny. We've got, and it just sums up the predicament we're in. We're going to maintain a trickle and stay in this damn league. There's middle age right there. I think maybe the supporters getting too old. Look,
we've done it before. I think was it the Oldham year when they went down.
Spirit of all the places would be in Maamria. We need to do something. Oh God, but you'll have to give us something, lads. Come on. For yourselves. We get you don't care about Barrow. Just do it for yourselves, for crying out loud.
Oh, and I'm telling you now, such is football. You can turn that around. If they go on a little bit of a run and pick us up points, you'll soon hear us singing all the praises. Ronan's down at the tunnel trying to cuddle him rather than try to shout abuse at him. You never know. Football is a funny old game.
Well, the manager's the only one in the team that's got 2 songs, so that probably said that might be it.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on, we're dancing with Sam Foley.
I'm at the stage where whatever it takes to get to the end is what it is. I'll cuddle anybody. I thought when you were going to talk about our last hope, you were going to say that the War of Iran will kick off and that will go down to PPG or something.
That was my last hope. Yeah, that's
like trying to say that drones would go over Holker Street and end the season.
I think I offered Gary Lineker and the Goats, so I don't know what other depths of depravity I can think of with this manager. But, we can make it maybe a competition. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we are on Putin's target list, so maybe that could be our last hope.
I don't give us any hope of, stopping any drones, do you?
I was going to say, we can't defend one of them, can
yeah, we can't.
Christ, we can't defend a cross into the box, let alone a drone attack.
It's really ironic, really, when you think of the town. Anyway.
Hey, I was thinking about the tunnel thing as well. These players should be grateful the cage isn't still there.
Bring back the cage. Bring back Josh Granite, the cage, and Dave Bayliss, please.
Yeah. Because I got some rattles back in the day.
Yeah.
It was noted by somebody who was in the tunnel at the time that it was very much heard inside what was being told to them. So hopefully the message was sunk into a few of them.
Oh, God. I think I'll start this podcast end this podcast as I started it. So, yeah, anyway, cheers, guys. Nice one. Thanks for your time. Let's see what the weekend brings, eh? And we'll be back here, this time next week, post another 2 games. Accy this Saturday, Salford away next Tuesday. So, let's see where we are.
Hope springs eternal.
Thanks for the therapy session, chaps.